Zayne had been doing the honors of keeping Payman from escaping. But Roth, he'd taken Zayne's place, and now he was in the fiery pits. Leaning forward, I propped my elbows on the cool table, completely unaware of what Mrs. Cleo was droning on about. Tears burned the back of my throat as I stared at the empty chair in front of me that used to belong to Roth. I closed my eyes. 2 weeks, 336 hours, give or take a few, had passed since that night in the old gymnasium, and not a second had gotten easier. It hurt as if it had happened an hour ago, and I wasn't sure if a month or even a year from now would be any different. One of the hardest parts was all the lies. Stacy and Sam had asked 100 questions when Roth hadn't returned after the night we had located the Lesser Key of Solomon, the ancient book that had the answers to everything we'd needed to know about my mother, and had been caught by Abbott, the leader of the Warden clan in D.C. who had adopted me as a young girl. They'd stopped eventually, but it was still another secret I was keeping from them, 2 of my closest friends. Despite our friendship, neither of them knew what I was, half warden, half demon, and neither of them realized that Roth hadn't just been out with mono or changed schools. But sometimes it was easier to think of him that way, to tell myself he was just at another school instead of where he was. The burn moved into my chest, much like the low simmer in my veins that was always present. The need to take a soul, the curse my mother had passed on to me, hadn't diminished one bit over the past 2 weeks. If anything, it had seemed to increase. The ability to draw out the soul of any creature that had one was why I hadn't ever gotten close to a boy before. Not until Roth had come along. Given that he was a demon, the pesky soul problem was a moot point. He didn't have one. And unlike Abbott and almost all of the Warden clan, even Zayne, Roth hadn't cared that I was a mixed breed. He'd accepted me as I was. Scrubbing my palms over my eyes, I bit the inside of my cheek. When I'd found my repaired and cleaned up necklace, the one Pater, a warden who turned out to be my half-brother, had broken during his attack on me. At Roth's apartment, I'd clung to the hope that Roth wasn't in the pits after all, that he'd somehow escaped. But with each passing day, that hope flickered out like a candle in the middle of a hurricane. I believed more than anything in this world that if Roth could have come back to me, he would have by now. And that meant, when my chest squeezed painfully, I opened my eyes and slowly let out the breath I'd been holding. The room was a little blurry through the haze of unshed tears. I blinked a couple of times as I slumped back in my seat. Whatever was on the slide projector made no sense to me. Something to do with the circle of life? No, that was the Lion King. I was so going to fail this class. Figuring I should at least attempt to take notes, I picked up my pen and... At the front of the class, the metal legs from a chair scraped across the floor, screeching loudly. The boy exploded out of his chair as if someone had lit a fire under his butt. A faint yellow glow surrounded him, his aura. I was the only one who could see it, but it sputtered erratically, blinking in and out. Seeing people's auras, a reflection of their souls, was nothing new for me. They were all kinds of colors, sometimes a mixture of more than 2. But I'd never seen one waver like that before. I glanced around the room, and the mixture of auras glimmered faintly. What the hell? Mrs. Cleo's hand was frozen above the projector as she frowned. Dean McDaniel, what in the world are you? Dean spun on his heel, facing the 2 guys sitting behind him. They were leaning back in their seats, their arms crossed and lips curved up in identical smirks. Dean's mouth was pressed into a thin line, and his face was flushed. My mouth dropped open as he planted one hand on the white tabletop and slammed his other fist into the jaw of the kid behind him. The fleshy smack echoed through the classroom.